really obvious thing have you only just realized? Story 1 that my casual coffee drinking habit 3 to 4 coffees a day is causing the anxiety I've been experiencing for some time. Now I drink 1 coffee around lunchtime, only if I feel I need it and I feel better. Story 2 took me till my freshman year of college before I realized pickles were pickled cucumbers and not their own, unique vegetable. I thought the way you pickled other things was you put them in pickle juice. Story 3 the phrase pitch black is referring to the substance pitch, which is very black in color. I had always considered pitch in that context to be akin to very, like how some otherwise archaic words survive in idioms. Story 4 I saw a video where a man said he didn't know banks don't keep your money. He's been giving the bank rare coins thinking they put it in his account. I think he thought it was like a safe deposit box. Story 5 a friend just shared me a video in which a lady talks about how she never figured she could eat the lemons from her lemon tree instead of buying lemons from the store. Story 6 I'm face blind, and I just found out how bad it is. Apparently my UPS driver who I see every day at work is the guy who grew up down the street from me, and I thought they were 2 different people because the UPS guy wears a hat. Story 7 we went to London in primary school and went to the Houses of Parliament. I've only just realized they say ayes and noes when referring to how people vote, not ayes and noes. I thought it was a covert way to vote by turning your head a certain way or something. I only figured it out when I was watching a video with captions. Story 8 growing up, my grandmother always used to tell me sleep tight, don't let the bedbugs bite, and it always sounded like a quaint old-timey saying to me. It wasn't until a recent infestation scare in my apartment complex that I learned bedbugs are real critters, and not just a part of a nursery rhyme meant to tuck kids in at night. Talk about an epiphany that itches in retrospect. Story 9 non-US resident here. I grew up reading Donald Duck comics and I was well into my teens before I realized that the green money was based on the dollar bill, not something the artist made up. I just found the concept of green money unrealistic. Story 10 it wasn't too long ago that I learned that masking on Photoshop is in reference to the same sort of task when painting, using masking tape to block off the areas you don't want the paint to get on. To know why it took me as long as it did. Story 11 corn kernels are the seeds. Wanted to grow corn for fall last year. Bought a pack of corn seeds only to realize the kernels from the cob were the seeds. Felt pretty dumb just realizing this at 33 years old. Story 12 we were having breakfast at IHOP, just got thinking, and I said out loud, I wonder what happened to the International House of Pancakes. They used to be all over the place. I am not SMRT. Story 13 my father herded caribou in Alaska from Hellies as a young man. For 24 years I thought the fiber velvet literally came from cartilaginous antlers, as it's referred to as velvet in the industry for its soft feel. I've shared this lie with hundreds of people. Story 14 I was watching the TV show Monarch Legacy of Monsters. They show the characters in different times, the past and present, so they have an old actor and young actor for each version. I was crazy impressed by how well they cast the young version of Kurt Russell's character, like he looks so believably like him in the past. The young version is actually his son, Wyatt Russell. Story 15 this neighbor kid would always invite me over to spend the night, saying he'd show me dirty movies and teach me some wrestling moves. I always said no because I wasn't into wrestling, didn't figure out until like 15 years later that he was trying to molest me. Story 16 that I'm not a bad person if I decline an invitation somewhere, and that I don't need a life or death excuse as to why I can't attend. I've always thought if someone invites me to something, I would have no excuse not to go unless there was some kind of emergency. I have stressed myself out thinking of what to wear or researching appropriate host gifts or what I might need for the activity, even if it's not something I wanted to do. I've known this intellectually for a while, but for whatever reason didn't think it applied to me. Story 17 around 1 year ago I was talking with my best friend and my boyfriend, and I realized, probably for the first time in my life, that not everyone suffers from allergies. Bear with me here. I've lived with allergies all my life. I wake up and I sneeze uncontrollably, allergic to dust, strong smells, instead to be allergic to artificial food coloring, so from the moment I wake up I'm on it. It is a part of my daily routine. My parents, brother and my closest cousins all suffer from allergies too. Last year while having a couple of beers we talked about allergies and they were telling me how they have never had an allergic reaction, no crazy 25 in a row sneeze attack or itchy eyes. I was incredibly puzzled. Then I felt very stupid jajajajajaja. Edit bear with me jajaj sorry my Reddit friends. We are not all getting naked together today. Story 18 I only just realized that the YKK on zippers stands for Yoshida Kogyo Kabushiki Kaisha, which is the name of the Japanese company that manufactures most of the world's zippers. It's something I've seen countless times but never thought to question until now. Story 19 the way the number keypad is laid out on a computer keyboard is the opposite inverse of how it's laid out on a phone. For ages, I've been able to casually type numbers on the computer without looking, but I stumble over phone numbers. Story 20 the TV show House is based on inspired by Sherlock Holmes House Holmes James Wilson John Watson Vicodin addiction cocaine addiction solves medical cases solves crime cases. Story 21 that in Shrek Lord Farquaad Lord, it took me 22 years to get the joke and I've watched this hundreds of times with my kids and more recently with grandkids. Mind blown when son-in-law pointed it out. Did you know that Go-Gurt is just yogurt? Story 22 a friend of mine discovered during her grad degree that single shower faucets still have temperature control. Her whole life she thought that the single faucet was just an on-off and whatever temperature came out. whether ice cold or scalding hot, was what she showered in that day. We found out when she made some throwaway comment about wishing we had a dual faucet shower. If we'd just let it pass, she might still be living that way. What's funnier is that she's remarkably intelligent. Story 23. I grew up around Doctor Who but never actually watched it for the longest time. My grandma and apparently my great-aunt way before I was born loved Doctor Who, so it was just always around and I never gave any thought to the name of the show. And then finally, oh my god, it's called Doctor Who because nobody knows his real name and they just call him the Doctor. Shoot me dead or something. I was so embarrassed. I'm doomed, had over 200 health-related appointments last year and ended the year no better in any way. Was at my general doc this week reviewing all last year's specialist visits with him and reality just kinda hit me. Story 24. How to use cruise control. When I was 18, my best friend and I went on a road trip and I thought cruise control kept your car going straight and at the same speed, only to be used in long straight stretches. Well, it didn't work and we kept veering off the road and decided it was broken. Fast forward a couple of decades and my husband asks me why I don't use cruise control ever, and I tell him all irritated I've never had a car it worked properly in, and he was just gobsmacked at my stupidity. He explained it to me and I called my same best friend and told her and she was all amazed at my newfound knowledge, and now we both use cruise control, and I'm a college graduate, homeowning, voting, parent, all responsible for other humans and things, and I just never knew. Story 25. Some of the exotic language stuff being regular words is always fun. Sumo just means wrestling in Japanese. Salsa just means sauce in Spanish.
Story 26. I just learned that the days of the week in French are named after the planet. Lundi lunar moon, ik knew that one. Mardi Mars, mercredi Mercury, jeudi Jupiter, vendredi venu incidentally, samedi means Sabbath des Jewish history, and dimanche means lors des Christian history.
So they have pagan Roman, Jewish Christian represented throughout the week. Story 27. Hot water can leave your hair heat damaged. I always denied having heat damaged hair because I don't use heated styling tools. It never occurred to me that washing my hair, in my 1 degree below steam shower, was causing heat damage. Story 28. I started having anxiety, panic attacks varied in severity and hypochondria in 2014, followed by depression, mood swings, and suicidal thoughts in 2016, plus weight gain. Between 2014 and 2018, I was in and out of therapy and on and off a handful of meds. One medication helped but made me extremely tired, so I had to quit taking it. The rest either only worked temporarily but had unbearable side effects, or didn't work at all and had unbearable side effects. I was also using the birth control shot to help manage my heavy periods and cramps. It stopped both completely, but I decided to stop using it because I've been on it for 5 years, which was longer than I was supposed to be on it. A few months after I got off it, my anxiety and panic attacks were like 95 gone, my mood swings improved a lot too. I still have depression though, but I'm trying to work on that. So it turns out that Depo was causing all of this. I kept going to the ER and my doctor, plus different specialists because I was worried something was wrong with my physical health. It's crazy how I figured that out on my own and not the ones in healthcare. Definitely a learning experience. Story 29. That the piano man is no different than the people he's singing about. A small-time piano player stuck in a dead-end bar, but singing about how much talent he has and that he should be somewhere much grander. Story 30. The lyrics to most songs. I don't know why, but I can hyperfixate on a song and play it non-stop but not listen to the lyrics. You'll know it musically by heart, but that's usually it, until I make it a point to ask, okay, what is this one about? Story 31. That the fact Australia has more neuroendocrine cancer cases per person doesn't mean that there is something in the country giving them the cancer, but that they have free healthcare, which mean more cases are detected. Story 32. I'm almost 50 and an aspiring gardener and just recently realized I could use the seeds from store-bought fruits and vegetables to grow new plants. I just always bought the seeds. Story 33. Pearl clutching references woman putting their hand to their chest in supposed shock while wearing the pearls. The pearls aren't just in their pockets or something. Story 34. The word disintegrate literally means to remove integration. The root word is integrate. Perhaps I've just heard it pronounced in a way the first T is generally dropped or softened, so it sounds like disintegrate that I never made the connection between disintegrate and integrate. Story 35. I was like 17 when I realized you take the husk off of tamales before you eat them. I tried one when I was young, and it took forever to chew, so I didn't eat one until years later. Never understood why people loved them so much. Story 36. A few years ago, I realized that Paris Hilton was famous because her family owned Hilton hotels. I never put 2 and 2 together before that, and I felt like an idiot. Story 37. Bahara literally translates to spices in Arabic. No, it is not a specific Moroccan spice mix. It's just some spice mix. Why my non-Arabic speaking friends struggle with that realization, huh? Story 38. Credit cards that give you airline miles as a reward aren't literally subtracting the miles between one airport to another to calculate a discount on a flight. It's just a fancy way of saying 001. Story 39. My little brother didn't know that girls wipe. He found out one time on a road trip with my grandma and I had to use the washroom and I said I could go in the bush, I just need some toilet paper. He couldn't understand why I needed the toilet paper. lol. Story 40 is supposed to be fun, and not fill me with guilt. Grew up in a very Mormon household. Most people are fake. They are acting the way they think others want them to be and do not live as their true selves. I don't mean fake as in materialistic. I mean genuinely appeasing others. When you fake your true self, you actually live a life that isn't yours. Be yourselves, guys. No shame, enjoy the life you are meant to live. Story 41. There are no blue raspberries. Since raspberry colors are reddish or purple, they started using blue 1 dye in foods or candy to differentiate raspberry flavors from grape deep red purple color or red flavors like watermelon, cherry or strawberry. Story 42. I listened to David Brent's Lady Gypsy yesterday and was looking at the cover photo. I had been thinking before, this guy looks very similar to Ricky Gervais, so I looked up David Brent to check out other images. Turns out they are the same person. This song has been on my playlist for years. Story 43. That capitalism fundamentally requires a certain percentage of the population to be in poverty to function, and that the most effective way rich people stay rich is by making everyone else poor because money is only valuable if you have more of it than most people. Story 44. That I don't really care about people's opinions on who I am fundamentally. I'll care if they think I'm being annoying or something because I don't want to be LOL, but I couldn't care less what they think of my gender or sexuality or really just who I am. Figured this out after a transphobic letter from my aunt who I barely see came a few days ago, and I realized I really didn't care about what she thought and actually found it quite funny. Story 45. For a long time I thought Bombay and Pompeii were the same place. I knew that the first was in India and the second had been buried after an ancient volcanic explosion and involved Romans or something, but just didn't connect that they were not the same place. Didn't think about it logically. Story 46. In the eclipse episodes of Avatar: The Legend of Aang, they make a plan to invade the Fire Nation when the moon is in front of the sun, meaning the moon is their best ally to ending the 100-year war. The moon, you know, Princess Yu. Story 47. That thing on a waiter's corkscrew that isn't a tiny little knife is there so that after you screw the screw down into the cork of a wine bottle a little bit, it can be placed against the edge of the lip of the bottle, so that you can use the entire corkscrew as a lever, in order to easily remove the cork. I'd always just screwed the screw all the way into the cork, and then pulled with all my might until the cork finally came out, assuming I didn't break it first. I'm 42 and I learned this over Thanksgiving a few months ago. Story 48. In movies, and maybe in real life, drivers are often pulled over due to a broken taillight. I thought to myself, would anyone really be pulled over for that? After debating myself, I concluded it might be either 1. The officer sometime have a gut feeling about someone, using the broken taillight as an excuse to interview the driver and investigate further. Or 2. If someone is kidnapped or for some other reason locked in the trunk, kicking the taillight out might be the only way to signal they're trapped. As I'm writing this down, I realize it might not be groundbreaking news to anyone. Heck, it might not even be true. However, as Opie asked for, it was something I realized that might be obvious. Story 49. There's a pizza spot in California called Pizza My Heart. It's been around for decades and I thought the name just random and cute. It dawned on me the other day that it's a play on Piece of My Heart. Story 50. I only recently realized the title of Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, was a joke about walking with an erection. I was an adult when the movie came out. Story 51. My ex-wife is still a cheating drug-addicted loser. Second chances. Learn from my mistakes. Never again. My kid was drawing pictures of ships, so I figure he likes ships. Then it was dinosaurs, so I figure he likes dinosaurs. Then planes, then snakes, then elephants. Many months later, oh I see, he likes drawing. Story 52. The small magnification buttons on iPhone cameras actually really matter when taking photos and videos. The 0, 5x, 1x, 3x are preset zoom settings using the 3 lenses to get the highest quality image. Not pinching or spreading to zoom. Makes a big difference. Story 53. You can turn the tops of prescription bottles over and they fit to close the bottle. This is a non-pain in the to open way to get them open for the elderly. Story 54. Nitrogen is good for killing people while CO2 is very cruel, so in theory death penalty with nitrogen is a good thing, right? People will hold their breath. CO2 will accumulate. P.S. Death penalty is bad. Story 55. My dad, being the subtly horrible person he was, has contributed to my completely jacked relationship experience. He died almost a year ago, and I'm in my mid-40s, I kinda whiffed that one. Story 56. I only recently found out what the "why did the chicken cross the road" joke actually meant. That means I passed all my exams, learned how to drive, knew the phonetic alphabet, had a serious relationship and applied for a job, before I got the most common joke in the world. Story 57. I learned fairly recently that many people will say one thing but mean another. I don't understand this, because I only ever say what I mean, and if I don't quite know how to articulate what I mean, I say that as well. Story 58. As a barista, I just found that non-fat milk is still dairy because it comes out of the cow, it just doesn't have fat in it. This is so embarrassing. A customer had to tell me that non-fat is still dairy and that just didn't click until today. Story 59. Those rough circle holes in trash can lids weren't made by people to easily dispose of soda beer cans, but by squirrels chewing a hole to get into the trash can. Story 60. I always used P.S. at the end of letters, not realizing it means postscript, just that I was always told to put P.S. I thought it meant PSSSSD, like keeping a secret. Story 61. Someone pointed out that a girl's hairstyle on TV reminded them of Princess Leia. I said yeah, we call those space buns. Boom. Never made the connection until that very moment, and I was mind blown while he was sitting thinking do. Story 62. Lepers are people with leprosy. I knew what leprosy is, I knew generally about lepers, I did not realize the two were directly related. I assumed they were two unrelated things. Story 63. The word percent apparently comes from the Latin phrase percentum, which translates to by the hundred. The word literally means of 100, so 17 means 17 of 100. Doesn't change anything about the word, or my understanding of the word, but my mind was blown learning the etymology of it. Story 64. Not all things people think are bad. Not all things people think are good. Sometimes public perception is just fed and people just don't have all the facts. Story 65. I just watched a Max HBO ad encouraging the viewer to escape. It got me thinking escapism in the form of watching movies, reading books, etc. is kind of a waste of life. Wanting to escape implies not wanting to participate in life. We have limited time in life, and where we put our attention is all we really get to choose. Choosing to spend time watching TV on a regular basis is not that far off from basically checking out and wasting away. I grew up loving movies and TV, books, video games, and all of it, but now, being halfway through my 20s, I'm starting to think I'll really regret it later on. Nothing wrong with some entertainment, folks. Just remember that those stories have nothing to do with you. Carpe diem, and don't forget to make your own stories. Story 66. Jealous people are full of hate and negativity and will try to hurt you. Your light bothers them, but they won't succeed. Keep being you, never shrink yourself. Never hide in hats and shine bright. Story 67. Maybe it's not really obvious, but I have been going to estate sales lately in my early 40s, and yes, I found some great deals. It also really nails home the fact that what items you keep, covet, and treasure in your life will have almost zero meaning to the people that will obtain them when you die. It's surreal to watch people pick over the corpse of another's belongings. It's weird having readings from Ecclesiastes and words from Jesus in the back of my head, reiterating what I'm seeing with my own eyes. These things we own are not true treasures and are often meaningless. Story 68. Tying my shoes the correct way. I learned at 32 that I'm terrible at articulating my thoughts properly. But basically I was tying my shoes a certain way and not the locking way. No more double knots for me.